We're only days out from the next big Five Nights at Freddy's game. Secret of the Mimic releases on June 13th, and by the time this video comes out, that'll be any day now. And since we're getting so close, I think it's worth taking a full assessment of the situation so far, going through everything we know about the game, the locales, the animatronics, the whole 9 yards. With one caveat, well, two. A, I might miss something, I've been known to do that. And B, if anything comes out between this video and release, it won't be here, so keep that in mind. And sorry in advance. And also, note that when I started this video, since I've started this video, I've noticed a bunch like it on YouTube, so I know this is not exactly the most original idea, but you know what? It still might be fun, so let's go for it. Anywho, let's get right into it. Let's start with the plot. So, Secret of the Mimic involves us, a Fazbear technician, being sent to Murray's Mascot Manor, a giant mascot factory, to find the Mimic, a piece of advanced technology that Fazbear Entertainment really wants to get their hands on, and can't because the owner, Edwin Murray himself, has defaulted and disappeared. We will travel through the entirety of the factory, likely getting through with increased access from the data diver, what looks to be a pre-Faz wrench, and meeting a colorful cast of off-putting characters in the process. I'll go further into both the locations and the characters in a minute. But continuing on the story, this is not only a prequel to Security Breach and Ruin, but possibly to the entire franchise, as the game has been hinted to take place in 1979, making it the earliest known location. Though we do know that Fredbear's Family Diner is open, as we can see posters of it up on the wall in one of the scenes. We don't know if it's going to have one-to-one parallels with the books, but to cover the important parts of the Mimic story in them, especially relating to Edwin Murray in this location, Edwin Murray was an inventor who owned a factory and built costumes for Fazbear Entertainment. He had a son named David, but due to his work, and notably short temper towards his son, he couldn't spend much time with him. So on the fly, he built an animatronic endoskeleton capable of mimicking behavior it saw. David and the Mimic quickly became friends, though it's unknown if the Mimic was capable of human emotions or if it was just mimicking them. To the point that when Edwin was unwilling to make Mimic a tiger plush to match David's, David took it upon himself to make one out of string, solidifying their bond. However, David got hit by a car and died. Him getting outside of the factory to get hit by a car and the questions surrounding it aside, Edwin, in a fit of rage, attacked the Mimic and took off. The Mimic, fueled by Edwin's anger and/or mimicking it, then became a mass-murdering robot who would stalk its prey and tear them to pieces. It then headed to the Pizzaplex, but that's a story for another time. In fact, that might be the story for this time, but we'll get to that later. The important part is that in this case, we know that Edwin is missing and we're looking for the Mimic. And if this aligns with the original story, we're going to be walking up on a very aggressive Mimic with nothing to defend ourselves except an Atari controller and a metal rat. I'll get into speculation later on, but considering the brevity of recent FNAF stories, the sort of light narrative throughout and the reveal at the end that's a little obscure, I don't expect a lot of story anymore. There will probably be secrets and data logs to pick up along the way, though. And as for the Mimic's secret, well, we'll get back to that. Like I said, the game will majorly take place inside of Murray's Mascot Manor, a Fazbear Entertainment subcontractor or subsidiary who is, again, also connected with Fredbear's Family Diner. A Fazbear Entertainment subcontractor or subsidiary. The Manor is an enormous factory with various themed sections in it for the building, testing, maintenance, and showcasing of these various animatronics and mascots, both for sale and being ordered. The game will take us through these sections as we search for the titular Mimic hidden somewhere inside. Along the way, we will acquire the data diver to help access different locations, open doors, hook into terminals, pretty much everything the Faz Wrench did in Ruin, but a bit different. From what we see of the data diver, there is clearance for various staff members, and this clearance comes in 6 levels: Basic, Security, Repair, Creator, Admin, and Executive. And because of this, I'm guessing that with each upgrade in our clearance, we'll get to reach another area. Makes the most sense. We likely start off the game with Basic or acquire it with the data diver. But let's go through the areas we know so far. We know we likely start out in the face of the factory, the entranceway that is decorated for customers, probably the one that's showcased in H.E.L.P.E.R. Wanted 2. We do see a sort of hubbish area with Mr. Helpful and 2 passages leading to the birthday showroom and the Big Top showroom. This is likely one of the first places we arrive, as the Mr. Helpful seems to explain the different levels of clearance and possibly also keeps a record of which level we're on. The birthday showroom has Jackie's box on it, so it's likely the location where we encounter Jackie, which means, going off the demo, this is also the location of the mail sorting room and the offices connected to it. Or maybe not. If I recall right, Jackie is shoved behind a wall. I think more than likely this is where Jackie's first encountered, but you can never be too sure. There's a section that sort of looks like a sewer or pipeworks area where Jackie follows us. If the demo levels are any indication, this likely picks up directly after where we first run into Jackie when we fall through the floor. Big Top showroom is stylized after Maestro Music Man, and as such is likely where we run into him. We don't get a good look at where the Maestro is in the teasers. It doesn't look quite like a showroom, but due to his size, he probably chases us off somewhere else. There's also an instance where we will be on the roof. Maestro Music Man might be chasing us up there, or it might just be a connecting section. I do think it might be later in the game, especially since when we're up there it's snowing, though in the cutscene that shows us pulling up to the building, it isn't actively snowing. There's plenty of other strange rooms, hallways, and areas that lead into one another, making the factory look like a tight maze, along with more showroom areas where we can see finished or unfinished shows waiting to be picked up by whoever ordered them. It hasn't been confirmed anywhere, but we will likely see Edwin's living quarters, the ones brought up in the book, even if they're locked behind a secret or a collectible, just a blip like Glamrock Bonnie. I think they will probably, or should at least, have a bit of a section. And if this is the case, it will probably be located in the creator section if it's there. I'm going to leave the location portion here because a lot of what we see in the trailer I think comprises of some of the same sections, and I have a little difficulty weeding out for sure which goes where, so let's instead move on to the animatronic threats we encounter along the way. Throughout the game we run into various mascots and animatronics who look to be hunting us, and from the mouse toy in the tight spaces, it looks like our only way of survival is distraction and evading. But some of these bots might not be so easy to shake. Let's get into them. And yes, I'm aware all of the animatronics could be the Mimic, but I'll be addressing them as though they're their own separate entities, especially since that might be like a major spoiler for later in the game. Starting with the face of the game, Jackie, and what a face it is. This creepy clown Jack-in-the-Box rips itself free from its lower half just to chase you around the factory with its long accordion arms and intimidating speaker mouth. And due to its worn and broken appearance in the initial teaser, I think we can safely say that it's willing to go to any lengths to find you, if it ripping itself out of its box wasn't any indication. Now it looks like Jackie's going to be a pervasive threat that follows you for at least a couple of levels, if not appearing throughout the entire game when you least expect it. Fast and mobile, Jackie is going to be a problem, and being half puppet and half clown, that fits the bit. If the demo is exact to the real game, we encounter Jackie behind a broken wall after taking the crank from its box to open a door, something that I'm pretty sure is shown in the trailer. She then begins to dog you for a while as you drop into the depths of a factory, which could be the pipework-like area where we see her in the trailers. Like I said, she could be following us for a long time, but it's also possible that we run into Jackie at the beginning of the game, go through a couple of levels, she crashes somewhere, and then she pops up at the end of the game in this degraded puppet form. In fact, this is off script, prediction time. Jackie following us is not the Mimic, Jackie gets trashed by us, and then later when we're trying to leave, comes back to life because the Mimic has possessed it. Possibly, maybe not, we'll see. In my opinion, Jackie is hands down the creepiest animatronic or mascot we've seen so far, and I think they're going to steal the show unless something really wicked in Kellen Goff voice is hiding in the factory somewhere. Speaking of voices, here's a voice recording of Jackie taken from the PAX demo. I'm not sure who voiced this. We actually have a list of voice actors, and at one point it does sound like it turns into Kellen Goff's voice, but I'm not exactly sure who is the primary voice actress. Let's listen. Very unsettling. It's got that whole a winding down greeting card sort of tone. Moving on, we've got the Mascots, which is sort of an umbrella term for everything that gets up and walks around, such as the elephant, a gray elephant with a different colored body depending on the order. See, these mascots were made to order, and you can mix and match heads with the costumes they were mounted onto. That's why this hideous clown cutout shown here has the elephant's body, and I really hope it makes it into the game if these things are stalking around. There's quite a few mascots too. Only this one and the mushroom do we actually see moving through the trailer. In the recent MCM archive video, we get a tease about the Mycellium Men toys, which are these mushroom dolls that replay music they hear and mimic voices. So the Big Mushroom Man mascot is likely named the Mycellium Man too, and is likely a mascot for the toy brand. Another big mascot, the one we don't see moving, is Sharpay the dog, the mascot for Sharpay Salon, which we don't know much about. It might be like a traditional hair salon and he's the mascot, or it could be part of like a Freddy's establishment. There's also an unnamed Hedgehog who is shown alongside the elephant in Sharpay, but he's not shown moving. The only other mascot that is shown moving, and this is very briefly, is the white tiger. Now, the white tiger is a little more important than these other characters due to its connection with the Mimic. So you might recall me mentioning how David had a tiger plush and made one for the Mimic. Well, this big white tiger suit is a mascot version of the tiger plush, though whether Edwin made it for the Mimic to make him more appealing to David, or if the tiger came from a specific brand, is unclear. What is clear, though, is that the tiger is big, and it's going to be walking around, and that's never a good thing in this line of work. Other mascots who might not appear as true animatronics and will just be props include this swinging bee who kinda gives me Balloon Boy vibes. She's been revealed to be a mascot for a brand of honey, Swing Bee Honey. Fun guaranteed, swing like a bee, US grade C+, made in the US. So this bee could possibly be named Swing Bee. Fitting. There's also older early versions of Mr. Hippo, frogs that look like Hoppy, and even a gator who looks a bit like Monty. These are likely their own characters, but distant relatives to the characters they eventually became. There's also a pig that looks like VIP, the character from the Choose Your Own FNAF adventure book, VIP. Also, very likely since the elephant appears, the bird and the lion mascot from Ruin might also pop up somewhere here. Okay, moving on to the bigger animatronics though, we have Dollie, a big nurse doll with a plated body, a pretty green ensemble, and a lot of wear, especially around the feet. She also, curiously enough, has a tank on her back connected to her arms with tubes. From a poster released by Steel Wool, Dollie seems to be a repair bot for mascots and animatronics, a literal animatronic nurse, though I suppose maybe she does first aid too, though I don't see her having a particularly good bedside manner. In fact, considering that she's built for repairs, and those dangerous hoses, I would say that Dollie probably has some dangerous equipment built into her, and plates like that almost seem built to be opened up. Because of this, Dollie is likely found in the repair section, or in a section unlocked once you get the repair clearance, or that you have to complete to get repair clearance, making her possibly the threat directly after Jackie. And this actually makes sense if you consider how much she looks like Jackie. A sharp cry from the plushie mascots. These things could crush a man. Speaking of crushing, we have a really big problem hiding likely in the Big Top showroom, and that is the Maestro Music Man. Maestro Music Man is a literal stagehand, if not the stage himself. He's certainly big enough to be, with limbs the size of rafters and a faux curtained body with arms hidden inside of it. He's also got a built-in sound system with a music box wheel in its mouth, which I mistakenly thought was a grinder for the longest time, and gramophone horns on the sides of its head. He's intimidating, and considering our first impression of him is him smashing through the ceiling, he lives up to it. How we trigger this thing into chasing us is unclear, but it might be following us onto the rooftops, and it's likely a later game encounter. Like, I'm thinking equatable to DJ Music Man's appearance in Security Breach. Considering that the DJ section was one of the highlights of that game, and given a lot of praise by the audience, including me, I wouldn't be shocked if the Maestro is here to capture that same feel, so the boss encounter with him might be a lot like that. though hopefully will lack the 100-mile-an-hour speeding Gator that clips through walls. But moving on from threats, we have the Mailbot, who I believe has been confirmed to be called the Digi-Typer, which makes sense considering the whole typing thing and the sending letters to fired employees thing. This seems to be an early version of the staff bots as seen in Security Breach, and like them, it doesn't look like the Digi-Typer is going to be a threat. Well, beyond threatening jobs, he's definitely stealing a few of those. And another non-threat would be the Clean-o-vac, the world's most adorable vacuum. Shown in the Murray archive teaser, the Clean-o-vac is a little vacuum bot that can change size to suck up messes, and due to Dawko's teaser, we know there is a Clean-o-vac in-game that we can pat on the head. He is perfect. Everyone pat the Clean-o-vac. And then turn your head and look at Mr. Helpful. I don't know, Mr. Helpful here gives me a bad vibe. Though that's just judging a book by his cover. In reality, Mr. Helpful just seems to be a physical embodiment of the H.E.L.P.E.R AI program. In a sense, he's more a push for help button. More than likely, like I said earlier, this specific animatronic just brings you up to speed on your clearance and explaining the stuff surrounding it and the data diver. Now last but not least, the Mimic. Now I don't think I need to really tell you much about the Mimic. Likely you already know everything, but let me just give you a quick assessment in case you don't. As I said, Murray built the Mimic to entertain his son. Son died, Murray beat the pulp out of the Mimic and dipped, and in the books the Mimic became a violent threat, taking out swaths of humans in an instant. He was basically just running through rooms, ripping out throats with one hand and yanking off limbs with the other. He was an unstoppable, immortal threat. Built to work as any character, he could grow or compress his body to most any size to fit into any costume. He had super strength and super durability, and he had a cunning mind which he was capable of using to manipulate his prey. However, where we're coming into the story is at a very interesting part. We're coming in the middle, and very likely after Mimic was beaten by Murray, but before he got to the point where he was slaughtering dozens of technicians. There might be technicians who died before we arrived, of course. In one scene we spot an elephant suit with a human arm sticking out. If this is indeed a human and not a trick of some kind, then there were probably technicians sent in before us who were then killed and stuffed into the suits. This could explain the lack of employees, but also teaser letters sent out to some YouTubers also sort of suggest that there could have been a massive layoff as well. But it seems like this is still at the beginning of Mimic's reign of terror. We know Mimic is capable of mimicking every single animatronic and can be, at any time, any of those animatronics. But we can also see from the teasers and trailers that some of these animatronics will have different eyes at different times. Jackie has green eyes. She loses them to reveal yellow narrow eyes that are actually the Mimic's mascot eyes that weren't used in Ruin. And sometimes she has these burner coil eyes. I think there could be a mechanic where at some point we have to suss out where the Mimic actually is and who it's in. At least, that could lead to a pretty creepy scenario. And would be more intimidating than us just thwarting him time after time again. But that's neither here nor there. The biggest thing, though, is the secret of the Mimic. And not the game, the actual secret. And while delivering his backstory, as up until this point, and despite being revealed in Ruin, Mimic has been largely a book-exclusive character, the secret could be just this proper introduction, outside of us having to read the Mimic, the Storyteller, Tiger Rock, and all the epilogues. But that tantalizing title suggests that there might be something we do not know, a true secret of the Mimic, since the stuff in the books have been circulated so readily that, let me be blunt, likely you came into this video knowing more about the Mimic than I do. He's a real hot topic. So on that train of thought, the thing about Secret of the Mimic is that likely, there is no in the middle. The secret is either something we all already know or something none of us know. By which I mean, if the secret is that all of the animatronics are actually being controlled by the Mimic, we already really know and suspect that. If it's that the Mimic is actually, I don't know, possessed by David, buddies up with William Afton, or is somehow the puppet, then no, we don't know it. I'm actually kind of leaning towards the secret being the one we're already aware of, since it's something talked about in the books and not the games. So, it would be a secret to those who didn't read the books. So heads up, if you're expecting a big earth-shattering reveal, try to tamper your expectations, and if it happens, then it'll be even bigger than you were expecting. Speaking of, before I get into total speculatory and prediction time, let's cover over the teaser MCM archive videos. Now, with Security Breach, there were teaser videos that teased the animatronics, and the lyrics almost seemed to hint towards the characters, but Security Breach suffered from a lot of cut content, so it's hard to read if there was like any hidden meaning there, or just coincidence. In this case, the videos are mostly just teasing, but there's a few interesting things to note. The first is for the Stay Up Latte, where a worker at Murray's is suggested to try the new Stay Up Latte to keep working and quickly develops a nasty caffeine addiction, which is pretty standard when it comes to tight deadlines. We also see a blip of Dollie during the video standing there menacingly. First of all, this along with some of the posters kind of give us a look at Mascot Murray's Manor's treatment of their employees and work ethic, and it's very much like Fazbear Entertainment. And considering that the executive slot seems to have a bow tie like Fredbear's brand, it's very likely that the Manor has started adopting their practices. Which is insane, because that means Fazbear Entertainment was already up to their shtick back when the diner was around. It's possible that the Stay Up Latte might appear in-game, and I don't just mean as a cutesy coffee maker, that's a given, but possibly as a speed upgrade or something of the like. Sort of like the Fizzy Faz in Security Breach. Probably not, but I think I do recall that there were going to be coffee machines usable in Security Breach's survival mode, or I might be pulling that out of complete thin air. The coffee machine also says this.
I know what you want better than you do. I am always washing and learning. How another come, how another come, how another come, how another.
This is most definitely a reference to the Mimic, itself learning through observing. Though why he's so insistent on his targets drinking coffee is another story altogether. Maybe he gets a kickback with every latte he sells. The one thing of note that might mean nothing at all is the man in this video, with his dark brown hair and his giant purple bow tie. Now, us fans of FNAF have been conditioned to recognize that color, and as with all things, it may mean nothing, or it may be some sort of nod to William Afton. And why I knee-jerk to William so quickly is because the game takes place in the late 70s, and Fredbear's family diner is connected with Murray's. So yeah, knowing the late Afton's perchance at getting his hands on everything, he could very well be showing up. And if this is relating to Afton, it could have a more disturbing double meaning. You know, have another one, have another one. Have another one, another. You know, I always did find it funny how David got hit by a random car outside, and Charlie was found behind Freddy's by a big dark skid mark like someone might have ran her down. Anyways, on to the second video. The second video involves an advertisement for Murray's magic Coatrack with its posable arms and changeable size. Though what's odd is that compared to the other videos, this one is rather short, getting cut off by the voice distorting and the footage burning away. This is the only video that ends like this, weirdly enough, so I wonder if that means something. Though, like I said, Murray's costume manner is related to Freddy's, there's a good chance that it might catch on fire, and this is a reference to that. The Coatrack itself seems to be another reference to the Mimic. The ability to change sizes for tasks and give out friendly hugs seems to fit with the whole mimicking people shtick, but that's as far as it goes. Tape 3 is the Clean-o-vac commercial, introducing the Clean-o-vac, the world's most adorable vac cute cleaner. It can change size, it can be your friend. It's about as versatile as a hat rack, but you get to pat it on the head. We see a glimpse of this dog that can be seen in the trailer as a slumped suit. Doesn't look too intimidating there, but maybe there's a bigger one that gets up. And the final video released yesterday, would you believe it? And that is yesterday of recording. The advertisement for the Mycellium Men mushroom toys. The ones that repeat what they hear, but at a much worse quality. But it makes for a good friend. Your only friend. At least that's what the distorted voice in the video seems to be saying.
Pretty groovy.
Only friend. Your only friend. Again connected likely to the Mimic and its relationship with David. Interestingly enough, because shouldn't David be deceased by now, unless of course we witnessed that death in game. There's a lot of references to friendship here. Though unlike the books where David and Mimic's friendship, while being mostly mimicry, is portrayed as a time of innocence before David's death and Edwin's big breakdown, there's something much more sinister here, and we can't tell yet if it's the corruption of the friendship aspect after David's death, or if there was a more manipulative thread in their bond. Also, something else interesting. I saw a glimpse of something during the Mycellium Men trailer, and I thought it was like part of Mr. Helpful and something else, and I asked on a post if anyone else had seen anything. And my friend and fellow YouTuber Hair-Raising Rabbit said, "It looks like a snowman." And I was like, I don't see well, I'll be damned. There it is. It's Frosty. Well, maybe. It's really hard to see. It also kind of looks like it might have a pig nose, so maybe Rosie Pork Chop? I don't know. Whatever it is, if that in fact is Mr. Helpful, the one from the front room, then this thing, and whatever that thing is, are going to walk out into the room sometime during the game. And that is disconcerting. But that covers the video. Okay. Prediction time. Whether or not the Mimic is directly related to the puppet, I'm like 90% sure we're getting puppet origin here. There's just so much baiting of it that I'd put money on it, about $40 worth. With my best guess being that Murray's Mascot Manor built the original puppet, which wouldn't shock me since it's a costume company that specifically makes masks and animatronic jack-in-the-boxes that look like the puppet when de-wigged. If the puppet's coming from anywhere, it's here. Especially since now it's implied that Henry didn't even upholster his own animatronics. But we're in the puppet resurgence era. This thing is haunting me. It's starring in the movie, it's showing up in teasers, it's getting a rubber duck. Something's gotta give. Also, Afton is likely showing up in some form, even if it's a 2-second, "Edwin, it's me, William. I did it. I found it. It was really far in the back of the factory under a couple of cardboard boxes and dressed up in a fursuit. But it was there. It was all of them. It didn't recognize me, thank God. But then it thought I was you. And then I was forced to buy it ice cream and push it on the swing set until it got into the back of my van. If only real children were this easy to coerce. Maybe they are. Excuse me, Edwin, but I have something I must do. There is only one thing left for me now. I'm going back to work." Of course, there's also the possibility of a surprise reveal that William's been mimicked the whole time, having Scoopin' entered him, but it's way too early to say that. The Mxes is also probably going to get created or get a backstory here, and I'm a little more confident here because of H.E.L.P.E.R Wanted 2's teaser for The Secret of the Mimic, showing Mxes being taken from Murray's Manor to the Pizzaplex, assumedly, in what looks to be the same van. So in all likelihood, he's showing up, even if it's like a 2-second cameo at the end. Vanessa and Vanny, I'm less convinced. This feels like a circumstance where they don't have to directly be referenced, but both of their voice actresses are in the game, so they could always show up. Michael Afton is not the technician we play as. He was a teen in the 1980s, so he would either be a teen or a child here. Unless this is a trick and it only looks like it's in the 1970s and it actually takes place years later, Michael would be too short to ride that killer coaster. My biggest prediction is that the story formula is going to match H.E.L.P.E.R Wanted 2's, where we get some lore sprinkled in, but really it sticks to the find the mimic, encounter threat, defeat it, encounter threat, escape it formula before having 2 quickish endings at the end. One more detailed and one clearly the bad ending, but then probably have enough sprinkled into both that it blurs the line of which ending is the actual ending. And also, Deformed Jackie stuffed with a mimic might be the security puppet who learned from Afton and then went around back to see the dead child because it reminded him of his former friend who Afton mowed down in a van while kidnapping the mimic, but we'll see. I hope you enjoyed this video, and more importantly, I hope this gave you just enough to help tide you over until the coming release. These last few days are always the longest. Anywho, thank you for watching.